Hello, my loves. I am back, and as promised, I am going to deliver some insight and kind of wisdom into a practice that I hold near and dear to my heart, future self journaling. I have been doing this practice for a year. I cannot believe it. I got thinking earlier this month, like, how long have I been doing this? It's got to be close to a year. And I look back in my journal, and actually I have my journals with me, so I wanted to show you. I look back in my journal. This one was my first one on May 4th. 2019, I did my very first day of future self journaling. I absolutely love this journal. If you're thinking about journaling, I highly recommend you buy a journal that feels like special and sacred to you. Buy a pen that feels special and sacred to you. This is like a beautiful time for you to connect with you. So think of it as like you're almost like you're treating yourself, you're taking care of yourself. And it should be this like really, this is sacred space, right? Is kind of how I look at it. So I absolutely love this journal. I originally bought this journal as a gratitude journal. I bought it in 2013. I can hear my children fighting. I bought it in 2013 and had every intention to start a gratitude practice, and it didn't take. It didn't take, and I didn't really do the journaling regularly or consistently ever until this last year. And so a year ago, I started following the work of Dr. Nicole Lapira at The Holistic Psychologist on Instagram. If you don't follow her, follow her. I tell everybody to follow her because I feel like her work is beautiful and needed and can help you live a more enriched life. And so I started that journal May 4th of 2019. I then moved into this journal. I have filled this journal. Oh, it's so beautiful. I'm just really proud of myself. If you watched my last video about my 90-day recap, you got to celebrate. So celebrate yourself. And I have recently started in journal number 3. A beautiful journal that my husband brought me from Turkey, which is near and dear to my heart. I went there in 2005 for Team Canada. It was my first national team, and I loved the country. I loved the people, and I had a beautiful experience there. And so May 4th, 2020 rolls around. I've done a year of future self journaling. I've done the recap on the 90 days, and I wanted to give you an update on the 1 year. So what have I noticed in a year of this practice? Now, this is the first time I've ever been consistent with a practice outside of, say, a physical practice of exercise or something like that, right? Like that's something as a former athlete, I did regularly. I move in and out of that, but typically like I'll be very consistent with a physical practice over a long period of time. So on May 4th of 2020, I looked at my day count on future self journaling, and it was actually 308 days. So of 366 days, a leap year, my friends, I journaled 308 times, which, you know, isn't too bad. I missed 58 days in there, which when I think about it, I'm like, that's 2 months. Like, an older version of me would really be judging that. Like, how did you miss 2 months of a year? But, you know, it was never like, there was 2 periods where I got really disconnected from my journaling. One was at Christmas. We had a lot of travel, like 3 weeks of travel and in different places. And I definitely got disconnected then. And then I got disconnected in March. I went into pretty dark place. And honestly, I thought about picking up my journal several times, and I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I felt totally disingenuous to journal about a future version of myself when I was just so in the thick of what I was in at that time. It was very, very dark. And although it was a very, very dark place that I was in, or I found myself kind of in, or was it March? No, it was February. and because Corona had not happened yet. And I found myself in this like really dark place, and it was interesting to kind of witness and have awareness around that place that is in here. I didn't know that that place existed, and there was a lot of sadness and a lot of rage in there. And I don't know if I would have ever witnessed it before. I may have like experienced those emotions and not really seen the place where that exists or seen what lives in there. And I felt like I was really able to see and feel that, and honor it. A big part of my journey in the beginning was loving and honoring myself. And I didn't even really know what that meant. I didn't really know what it meant to honor myself and my experience. Like, I literally had no idea when I started this over a year ago on this kind of, the healing journey's been off and on for years for me, but really thick the last year. And so I didn't really understand how to do that. And I would journal about it because I wasn't quite sure how. And it's been really a beautiful journey to love and honor myself, and understand how to do that. But you kind of have to cut through the shit if you want to be able to do that. Like, you have to really look at the things and see how you've dishonored or pushed aside these pieces of yourself that, you don't even know that are there, that you've been doing since you were a kid, or whatever else. So it's been quite a beautiful experience. If you see me looking down, I'm looking at some notes. So if I look back on my journal and reflect on how I kind of journaled in the beginning versus how I journal now, it's very different. And as it should be, I am a totally different person. It's like you're a different person, but you're just actually more of who you are. It's like you've been outside the door and you're finally home. You're like there. So something I noticed, I look back at my old journal entries, and I see that it was kind of like a pep rally, like just trying to cheer myself on, like, you got this, like this future self that you can be. And it's kind of like there's this like little voice in my head that kind of looks at it like it was desperation, and I was being desperate, and I see you and I'm not listening to you. but yeah, there was and honestly, I was in a spot where like I did need that. I needed someone cheering me on. I needed someone saying, you can do this. That's just where I was at in my life. I hadn't really connected with that higher self of my inside. I hadn't really connected with this more authentic version of myself, or this wise inner parent. I hear I hear a holistic psychologist, or Nicole, talk about that a lot, this wise inner parent. And that voice, that program wasn't installed for me. So it took like really hitting kind of rock bottom to connect with a piece of myself that could be compassionate and loving and caring. And so in the beginning, I really needed that pep rally. Now when I look at my journaling, it's definitely more of like a calm knowing, that I have connected with that intuition that, at times, like it's a work in progress. It is not just like that. Because the thing is, the more you honor yourself, the more you honor your experience, the more you honor your internal flagging system, the stronger those signals get, if that makes sense. So it's like I just blew past any kind of red flags in relationships with other people because I didn't know how to listen to them. Like, I didn't know how to listen to those red flags. My body I hadn't honored those within myself before to see that as deep wisdom that lives within me. And it lives within all of us. It's just a matter of connecting with that. And so when I look at my journaling now, it's more of a calm knowing. It's more of a connecting deeper to who I am. And I have so much more peace in my body because of that. And I feel that calm knowing most of the time. And my ego isn't always in charge, so I'm not having to cheer it on. I can just sit in the resolve of me and feel really good there, right? Feeling really good in that place. So affirmations. So I used to write a lot of affirmations. All kinds of them, who I was, what I was going to do, the kind of characteristics that I have. And a lot of that has changed. Because I guess probably one of the biggest realizations around that is that, I can choose at any moment to embody any characteristic. I talk about this, it's like I am everything and I am nothing all at once, which means I can choose to be anything and everything, or nothing and everything, at any given point in time. And that sounds like jibber jabber, as my daughter says, maybe, or maybe it makes complete sense to you. But if there is a stream of consciousness that's running through us at all times, and we get to choose out of that stream of consciousness what we want to embody in the moment, then it's really up to us. It's our past conditioning that usually tends for us to grab for the same thing, and express the same thing. And so, when I really made it's like, I used to always think like, well, I want to, like, I'm a kind person, I am a loving person, I am, these more positive emotions. And I really wanted to reinforce, or these positive traits, and I really wanted to reinforce them by setting these affirmations of, I am this, I am that. And the thing is like, I am all of those things, but I am also all of the bullshit. Like, I am also the judgment, and I'm also the angry, and I'm also the lazy, and I'm also all of those negative things I am too. And so just really realizing like it is up to me at any given moment in time, to express who I want to be in this life. And it's our conditioning typically that is, we have lived this past life up until this moment, and we think that that's who we are, and it doesn't have to be ever. And so I think now when I write my affirmations, it's, I'm here, like I am here right now in this moment, and I decide and choose at any given moment. I decide I am here, I decide. And that to me is where my affirmation is now, because that's just the truth. That is my truth. So I love that, because basically that is freedom. Freedom is to know that you can, even if you don't necessarily feel like emotions can cloud that, but like the freedom to be able to choose, the freedom to be here, to be really present and know that you are here right now, and this is the only moment you will ever have, and then to decide accordingly for what's in alignment for your purpose and your path in this life now is what gets you there, right? Gets you there, gets you where? Here, right? Like that's where. So anyways, I'm going down a rabbit hole. So other thing I noticed from my journaling is I see a lot of, I follow a lot of self-help or psychologists or whatever you want to call self-development people on Instagram. I love using Instagram as a place to uplift and up-level and upgrade ways of being. The thing I hear a lot is enmeshment or codependence. Absolutely grew up with a lot of codependence, enmeshment, see it a lot in my current relationship, which is like been like, right, when one person's on a healing journey, everybody's on the healing journey. And my husband is like incredible, is totally for all of it, and is on the journey as well. And we see this, and what's interesting is we talk about enmeshment, and we talk about being codependent with partners, with other people in our lives, with parents, with whatever. But the thing is like we're enmeshed with ourselves. Like I noticed that, like I'm enmeshed with me. I used to think I was my body. I used to think I was my emotions. I used to think I was my thoughts. All of these things I thought I was. And when I started to realize I am none of those things, I am the observer of all three, it really started to change how I related with myself, because I'm not how I feel. Like that's stored energy or new energy created from whatever experience I'm having in the moment. It's a beautiful thing to witness, but I'm not my emotions, and I'm certainly not my thoughts. those are narratives passed down by generations. I'm not my thoughts, and I am not my body, this thing that can be objectified, and this thing that is just this beautiful sensory tool to get through this life. And I am not it. It is my friend, but I am not it. And so realizing that enmeshment within really allowed me to, one, create boundaries with myself. And that kind of goes on to the next thing, like boundaries, avoidance, intentions, like really setting boundaries with me. Like we talk about boundaries with other, again, outwardly. How do we have boundaries in place in our life? I needed boundaries with me. I needed boundaries in place with me. Like, no, you don't get to talk to yourself that way. That was the boundary that I put between my thoughts and my body. Because these are old ways of being from very young, and I'm sick of them. And so creating those lines, and then having an awareness around it really changed things. So something I notice is I don't create the boundaries with myself. I avoid myself, right? And I can tell you more about that relating to the self-healer circle, but I avoid myself when I'm journaling. I will get totally off track and unfocused, right? And my lack of focus isn't about my lack of focus. It's about my lack of boundaries, my lack of intention, my avoidance of my own needs and showing up for me, which, when that's modeled, that's what you learn, right? And then it's not until you have the awareness around it to change it. So I absolutely see that, and I want to write on all of this kind of at more length and kind of talk about it more. And then awareness. So like awareness is basically the greatest thing that I've probably taken away from this last year. Awareness to be different, awareness of the emotions, like seeing emotions arise in me and like feeling them roll through me like this gigantic wave. Fucking realizing that I used to be in pain when I would cry, like really having the awareness that like I'm not getting a release from any kind of emotional release from crying because I have shame around it, right? Like just like so much shit that like I didn't even know. I thought I had like this super happy childhood that was normal and it was okay for, everything that happened, which everything that happened is okay because it brought me to where I am right now, and which is a beautiful, beautiful place. But that comes back to the honoring, like looking back and like seeing like some of these memories I have are memories because I was traumatized in them, and I hold on to the energy of that. And I've never gone back and been like, oh, I love you. That was hard. Like, I see you. Like, that was painful. And that has been like the most beautiful thing ever because by cultivating that voice and that relationship inside, it's like I've become kind of like my favorite person. Like I love me so deeply, and that was not the case. I held so much toxic shame. I had these harsh, critical, judgmental inner voices that were so hard on me. And it was a matter of like, one, and that's still a challenge, right? Like that will probably be a forever challenge of deprogramming that, like taking out those lines of code in my programming and then inserting the codes of, wise inner parent, or, just this beautiful, loving voice that I'm cultivating inside, instead of this constant bullying that is happening inside. So, that has been really, really beautiful to me. And I say wise inner parent, I'm in the reparenting phase of self-healer circle, and it's been really interesting because I've had a couple awarenesses arise out of that, and I can't wait to share them with you, as well as all of the other things. I don't know if journaling is your practice, but I encourage you to find a practice and stick to it, because you are worth it and you deserve to live a fulfilled voice with your best friend, you, with your deepest love, you. And so, and when I think about showing up in the world as your most authentic self, it's like we can't show up authentically if we have these layers of programming inside that prevent us from actually even knowing who we truly are, what our truth and our true voice really is, aside from this narrative that is holding us down. So I've always heard that saying, we are our own greatest enemy, or the only person that holds you back is you. And some of these become kind of like these cheesy one-liners that we say, but I really truly see how I am the only one that can hold me back from anything in this life now. So I urge you to watch my other video, the 90-day recap. I will continue to share my tips and tricks and what I've learned, as well as my love and joy, because when I was 13 years old, I was in the car and I was driving out on this country road in small town Western Canada, and I remember thinking to myself, what are we even here for? And the thought was finished and another thought was received, and it was to spread as much love and joy as possible. And I can't do that if I don't have that love and joy cultivated here, right? And so I've been thinking about that a lot and realizing that memory is really important. That memory and that feeling that I had in that moment is really important, because that was a message, right? That was a call to me. And I truly believe that is what I'm here to do. So I will be spreading my love and joy here all of the time for you. And just continuing to cultivate that and help others cultivate that. So that's what I have for you today when you're future self journaling. Yay! Good job, Crystal. You're amazing. And I will continue on the path and share more of my healing journey as we go.